Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, like I mentioned previously, we have another guest. Now, my guest is definitely what I would say is a legend in the podcasting game because he has been around for a good while podcasting before I even thought to ever podcast a day in my life. And he's always done a great job. He's always, provided comedy as well as providing great commentary. And I figured I'd bring him on to talk about a little bit of football. Welcome to the show, everybody, Mr. Damian Adams. What's going on, Damian?
Man, love the intro right there. I don't know if I'm worthy of those statements, man. Nah, but I love it. I feel like I'm on celebrities podcast right now, man. I was waiting for my opportunity. Everybody that we rock with to be on the podcast, but me. I was like, when is Mike going to invite me on the podcast? When am I going to get my opportunity to come on the AFC South? So I'm glad to be on, man. And of course, anytime I get to work with you, man, I'm always down for it. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, I had to get quite the right time, man. It's all about timing. So I was able to get the right timing to get you on, and it's definitely a pleasure having you on, man. So I have to ask, you've been podcasting for a long time. How did this all start?
Well, yeah, of course, when I was younger, I had sports dreams just like everybody else. My sport of choice is basketball, and I wanted to be a hooper and got into high school, and I played against Greg Monroe. We the same age, so I played against him. I played against him all 4 years of high school, and he was the number one ranked guy in our class. And at that moment, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this basketball thing is going to work out the way I thought it was. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take it to the next level. I played against DJ Augustine as well. He's a couple years ahead of me. And I'm from New Orleans. So both of those guys grew up in the New Orleans area and played against those guys in high school. And both of those guys went on to go in the NBA. And seeing those guys in high school, man, it was like, oh, man, this is a different level of talent right here. I'm okay. I can get you 20 points in a rec league game, but that NBA level talent is something different. So from there, I was like, how am I going to stay involved in sports? And at first, of course, everybody who is dreaming of being in sports media, they look to Stuart Scott at that time, right? You're like, oh, man, I want to be a sports center anchor. I want to come with my own little catchphrases and things like that. My mom still has video that she shows to this day. At the time, I had a little Nokia phone, and my ringtone was a Sports Center. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. So I would play that, and I would act like I was doing highlights of things that was going on. And then as I grew older, into how could I do that? And that's when I discovered Smiths of the world, Michael Smith from New Orleans, who you've gotten to go on his show, Brother from Another influence when I saw him on Around the Horn, when I was doing what I wanted to do. And that's where the influence came in. And once I went to the military, I met other people with the same interests and went to school for it. This is where it really kind of took off in my head. And I finally started an actual podcast when I got out into the and me and a friend of mine would go back and forth on emails all day. And then started going to with Mike and Jamel Hill. And of course, never thought I could do it today. I looked like, I think I can do this at a pretty high level. So I started with him, eventually ventured off to do it by myself. And that's when I got on social media, started connecting with more people. And now it's turned into this full passion that I have where I've cover everything from the NFL, NBA, WNBA, college sports. And just now I'm looking to continue that path of continuing a career in this.
Now, you said about making a career out of this and, kind of, seeing how far I can go. What would you say is your pinnacle
uh, I just feel like I haven't reached it yet. As far as what I've been able to do so far, it's I guess having people that I never thought I would be able to have a chance to interview, like having someone like Jerry Porter, the former receiver for the Oakland Raiders, on my podcast. Just yesterday on the 33 podcast, we got to interview George Teague, someone who I grew up watching, who played for the Packers and the Cowboys. So just having those opportunities to interview former athletes that I looked up to, and now have those guys come on my podcast, or even have guys stay on your podcast. I remember one moment that really stood out was I'm a big boxing guy, and Regis Prograis, at the time he was the 140-pound champion, and he reached out to me to come on my podcast to promote of his. And the fact that he reached out to me and I didn't reach out to him was a big thing. It was like, wow, he actually knows about my podcast, reached out to me personally, and wanted to use my platform to get his message out. That was something that was really big. So I guess that would be those moments. It's not one thing, but those moments where I get to interview former athletes, or I have somebody who I look up to reach out to me and say, I want to be on your podcast. And those moments always just let you know, because you're going to have low moments where you're like, man, is it worth it? Sometimes it's like, oh, it's enough people listening, enough people watching. But then as soon as I think that, as soon as that little negative moment comes, something happens positive like that. Or just even someone like yourself, who I really look up to as far as what you're doing, what you're writing, your podcasting. And you're like, oh, I really enjoyed that episode. Or, man, this is really dope. Like those moments, I don't know if people know how much that helps going along the way as far as keeping you going in the game. So it's just those moments when they happen, that's what keeps you going. I haven't had the pinnacle quite yet.
Gotcha. And yeah, definitely I agree. The comments when they come back to you and they say, hey, you did this was great, this was that. Another guy that does that a lot is C-Hen. He definitely comments a lot and comes back and says, hey, it was good work. That was this, that was that. And, he's another person that I can definitely say I appreciate when he does those comments and comments back, man. I appreciate it. Of course, we did talk about, of course, the Saints. We got to talk about the Saints, which is your team. We did talk about the podcasting, but we got to talk about the Saints, which is your team. You are repping the Pelicans right now, but we're going to flip it over to football and the Saints. And, of course, we've got to talk about the failed pursuit of Deshaun Watson. What were your feelings when that was going on, when they were pursuing him and all the other mess that was going on around him?
Man, it was mixed feelings, right? Because with what Deshaun Watson has been accused of, a lot of the evidence looks like he has done, you're like, do I want to cheer for this person? Do I want this person to be on the team that I'm going to be rooting for? Then the other part of it is this guy's top 7 quarterback in the NFL, top 5, depending on what your ratings are. And that's one position that we definitely struggled with last year. We get this guy, we already got a great defense, that puts us over the top. So as a football fan, looking at it from a strictly football perspective, you're like, great, let's go ahead and get him. But of course, from a moral perspective, I don't know if I want to have this guy on my squad. Do I want to cheer for him? So it was definitely mixed feelings. And people were upset, but at the same time, it was 31, include my Saints. So NFL know what they thought of the situation. And it's a very complicated situation because he's not going to jail. He is eligible to do what he does for a living, which happens to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I had mixed feelings about it. And for a moment there, it looked like we was going to get him. It looked like it was between us and Atlanta, and then Cleveland came back in at the last second. So I definitely had mixed feelings towards that situation. And I understand why people are upset, but people also have to not just be upset with Cleveland. If they're going to be upset about it, it's a whole NFL issue, not Cleveland.
Definitely understand that one there. Now, of course, he didn't land there, but you did bring back Mr. Jameis Winston. Year 2, off the ACL tear. He's always making the little comments that make you laugh and make you think, did he really think about that before he said it? But he's back. What do you think about year 2 with Jameis Winston as the starting quarterback?
I'm for it, man. I love Jameis, man. Those moments definitely always make me smile. I feel like we should start having a list of James isms. We should start having those those lists of like people, stuff that people say about Chuck Norris, like he doesn't do push-ups, he puts the world down. They should have those type of lists for Jameis and the things that he says. It's hilarious to me. But I think that Jameis last year definitely showed flashes of brilliance in those first 7 games. We did go 5-2 as a starter. And last year we didn't have any weapons offensively outside of Kamara when you really look at it. And the fact that this year bringing back Michael Thomas, bringing in the rookie Chris Olave, along with bringing back Kamara, you put those on. That's the big issue with us is left tackle. That's the one where we have kind of a question mark right now. But outside of left tackle, I love back. I think he meets him. You tell from the interactions of what he does on social media with the team that they really love him. So I think he's a good leader. And I believe in him as a quarterback with the right situation. If you're not asking him to do too much. I think at Tampa Bay at times they're asking him to do too much. That's when you lead to 30 interceptions in a season when you're asking Jameis to do too much. They weren't asking Jameis to do too much at the beginning of last year. We continue that. I can see a lot of success for Jameis with the Saints.
Yeah, we're definitely not planning on seeing another 30 for 30, and I'm not talking about a movie with Jameis Winston. Yeah, but one guy you did bring up is Chris Olave, and now I'll tell a lot of people this, and people can get mad or say whatever they want to say, but I think that Chris Olave is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I've said it like a few different times on a few different people's shows. I think he has the opportunity to be the offensive rookie of the year. How elated, how ecstatic were you when you all got Chris Olave?
I had a feeling we would try to go get him. The Saints have this just love for Ohio State players. You look at our roster, it's full of former Ohio State guys, including Michael Thomas. And when we got Chris Olave, I was like, yes, we definitely, because last year that was the big issue, was the lack of weapons on the outside, especially once Kamara went down. Like, people remember Jameis Winston getting hurt, but Kamara also got hurt during that losing streak last year as well. And once you lose that threat that Kamara is both running and receiving, you saw our offense just was horrible. Our defense did a great job, but they can only do so much. And this year now, bringing back Michael Thomas, having Chris Olave, I'm super stacked, man. Super hype about it. I think I can see that, man, because Michael Thomas is going to get the attention. I think people are forgetting how good Michael Thomas is because of the last couple of years, all the injuries and stuff. People forget the last time we saw him for a full season, he broke the record for catches in a season. Like, this dude is for real. And people are forgetting about that. So with the attention that he brings and going to the man, Chris Olave can really ball out. So I like the prediction, Mike.
Yeah, I just like his game. It's smooth and he has explosion as well. And then plus he can throw him in the slot. So that's a huge thing for the Saints. And then, it's definitely looking good in terms of the outlook of the team post Drew Brees and post Sean Payton. So now it's going to be a question of what the offense looks like without him. But that's another story for another day, and we'll get into that one on another show. But of course, we have to dive into the AFC South. And of course, the first team we're going to talk about is those Tennessee Titans, the team that made a lot of Saints fans mad because of the call that didn't happen or go a certain way and led to a Saints loss. I know I rubbed salt in the wound. I know I did. I know it. But looking at the Titans going into this year, A.J. Brown is gone. You bring in Treylon Burks. You bring in Robert Woods from the Los Angeles Rams, which I saw him at training camp, minicamp, I should say. And he's still rehabbing on that knee. He's going through all the practices, doing everything, got the yellow jersey on, but, still kind of trying to get that knee back all the way better. And of course, Treylon Burks really didn't practice at all. He basically was riding the bike and getting mental reps. So I think he's got asthma or something going on there. With those guys coming in as the replacements, I mean, who's the more pressure on, do you think? Ryan Tannehill or the wide receivers to produce?
It has to be Ryan Tannehill, right? Because you think about Tannehill at the end of last year with that performance he had, or lack of a performance he had in the playoffs against the Bengals. It's going to be a lot of pressure on him to come through this year and to prove that he can be somebody who can uplift the talent around him, right? Can he be a quarterback that can make receivers better, right? Without AJ Brown, if they do ball out this year, he'll be able to prove that. Now, of course, a healthy Derrick Henry makes things a lot easier for everybody on that offense. So if he stays healthy, of course, a lot of pressure on Tannehill this year. And of course, we all know the elephant in the room. There's a young quarterback that's going to be sitting right there waiting for his opportunity that you guys drafted, or not you guys, but that Tennessee drafted in that third round in Willis. So with Tannehill, he's going to be feeling that. And I think he's already felt that. You can tell some of the responses that he's had to questions and press conferences, things of that nature. He's feeling that pressure. So I think it's more pressure on Tannehill.
Well, I'll tell you this, being around him and kind of actually seeing him in press conferences, seen him in 2 press conferences so far, he doesn't really seem to feel the pressure quite as much. One thing he did this offseason is actually he went to therapy this offseason because that loss actually was weighing on him a lot, and it was kind of had him in a dark place, per his words. So he actually went to therapy this offseason and was doing that. So he actually seems a little bit more of a teacher role with the team. He's actually talking to Malik Willis, which I know people were saying, oh, he wasn't going to talk to Malik Willis. He's not supposed to be his mentor, but that didn't mean he wasn't going to go out. He was going to go out there and not talk to him and not try to help.
Yeah, he wasn't going to be rude.
It just meant it's not his job.
Yeah.
But he, when the times I've been out there, I've definitely seen him go out there and talk to Malik Willis, help ask questions. When Malik's asking questions, he's helping, trying to point him in what he's seeing and things like that. So, for my opinion, from what I saw, I don't think this is Malik's show right now. I think it'll eventually be his show, but just not right now. As far as the pressure, I would say more pressure is actually on the wide receivers than it actually is on Tannehill, because you also got to remember Tannehill's been in this offense last year. A lot of these receivers have not, so they're learning. He's basically putting it where the ball where it needs to go. The receivers have to end up being in the right spot. So that's I kind of see the flip of that. But of course, we'll move on to the next question as well. But and the next team, I should say too. We got to talk about those Indianapolis Colts, man. Now, this is their 5th quarterback in 5 years. You got to remember, you had Andrew Luck, you had Jacoby Brissett, you had Phillip Rivers, you had Carson Wentz, and now you have Matt Ryan. So, veteran quarterbacks are plenty there when it comes to Indianapolis. So, do you think he is the answer or the end-all, be-all answer for that Colts offense, or do you think they're still missing something?
Well, they're definitely still missing the weapons on the outside. Like, that's something that no matter what quarterback you have, you need weapons to throw to. And they don't have anybody who you consider would be dynamic. I do like Pittman, but he's not somebody who's proved yet to be a true number one. Now, maybe he does that this year. That's yet to be determined. But with Matt Ryan, me being a Saints guy, I've seen a lot of Matt Ryan over the years. He definitely is somebody who I believe in more than Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz had a very, when you look at his stats, it can fool you, right? Because he only had 6 interceptions last year, but they were very just timely interceptions as far as being the wrong time for the Colts. And when the pressure was on against the Jaguars of all teams to win a game, he didn't show up. So I think Matt Ryan in those situations will do a better job than Carson Wentz. So I do think it's a good replacement. Now I see the answer, because he's somebody who's there for a year or two, probably. It seems like the Colts have become the Florida of the NFL. You go there to retire. So they need to definitely go ahead and look for a more youthful solution going forward. But I think Matt Ryan will be a good answer this year.
Gotcha. Well, we'll definitely see what happens. Of course, going back to Ryan Tannehill, a lot of people believe that Ryan Tannehill is facing more pressure, especially P. Shark said definitely Tannehill. We upgraded tight end, no excuses. There we go. But going on to the Texans, excuse me, not the Texans, but the Colts defense. Of course, they acquire, I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, they acquire Stephon Gilmore at cornerback. They do acquire another pass rusher from Las Vegas. And I mean, their defense is set up to be better, but it all depends on Stephon Gilmore to me. Do you think he recaptures some of that brilliance that he had in New Orleans and in Buffalo? I mean, not, I mean in New
New
England and
England.
Buffalo. There we go.
Yeah. I think some of it is still there. Now, of course, you can't expect him to be an all-pro shutdown guy. But if he's there and he is 80% of what he was, you got a good pickup there for sure. And the way they run their offense, you're not expecting him to be, or their defense, excuse me, you're not expecting him to be just shutting down one side of the field, right? They play a lot of zone. So he's going to be able to shut down a certain portion of the field compared to being able to shut down a guy or shut down a side. So I think that for that situation, he'll be good. And that defense has been prone to be good the last couple of years. So you're already adding to a defense that has already set a foundation of being a good defense. So I don't think they're expecting him to be the guy he was in New England when he was, arguably the best corner in the league. But you're getting him and he's a top 10, top 15 corner. He's a good pickup for you.
Yeah, I hear you there. A lot of Titans fans were not very happy to see him go there. Not very happy to see them trade for Ndakwe. There you go. I could not remember his name to save my life for a minute there. But yeah, no, they weren't very happy to see that. However, they were very happy to not see the Colts get anybody opposite of Pittman. And I do think Naheem Hines finds his way into the slot some this season because people forget he was a wide receiver at North Carolina State and up until like his last year. So he does have those moves to play in the slot. So we'll see what happens and if they kind of get him more involved offensively or if they just kind of stick him in the same role. But speaking of the Colts, there is a former Colt that is playing for the Texans. His name is Marlon Mack. He's now in the running back room there in Houston. I think that's maybe a nice addition, provided if he's healthy. But it all depends on one guy. That'd be Mr. Davis Mills. He knows he is the guy this year going into this year. He's walking with a little bit more pep in his step, a little bit more swagger, as the cool kids say. But with him, it's going to be interesting to see if he's the guy or not. Do you think he shows enough to make them believe he is the guy, or do they get back into the draft next year and get another quarterback?
It's a tough situation because I don't know if there's enough there for him to show that he is the guy, right? He can definitely show that he's not the guy. Like he can go out there and just stink it up. You're like, okay, this guy is not the guy. But I don't know if there's enough there for him to prove that he is the guy, right? It's going to be a lot of forcing the ball to Brandon Cooks, just like it was last year. And Brandon Cooks, I believe, is one of the most underrated receivers in the league. He continues to put up very good stats, no matter who the quarterback is. You go back to when he first started in New Orleans with Drew Brees, all the way to now. He continues to just be productive wherever he goes. And the Texans is truly a full rebuild right now. So for me, I'm just hoping that they have a decent year and Lovie Smith gets a real chance there. I know you talked about it before where you don't believe he's going to get a real chance. So hopefully he does. But with Davis Mills, it's going to be really tough to prove that he's the guy. He did show some flashes last year, but we're going to see. We're going to see with a full training camp, with him going in knowing he's that guy. Will he perform? We'll see. It's definitely one of those TBD situations for sure with him.
Gotcha. For those that don't know what TBD is, that's not Tom Brady-ism. That is to be determined. Okay. But as far as we have a question from Bobby Warren. Said, why didn't Cooks shine in New England? Honestly, I thought he did pretty solid in New England.
Yeah, he was pretty solid.
I just don't think they gave him enough time. And I wish he would have stayed one place, but he did get to Houston and say, look, I ain't getting traded no more. No. But I will say that John Mechie III is another guy. If he's healthy, he could definitely be a weapon outside of of Cooks, and then also you've got Brevin Jordan, who was a young tight end that was from Miami that may get an opportunity to play a tight end, which you could have some weapons, but we'll see what happens. It all depends on the offensive line, which they did draft a guy there. But I want to flip back over to the defense real quick. You got Derek Stingley Jr. Honestly, I did not expect him to be the third pick. I expect them to go Evan Neal, but they went with Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU, Baton Rouge.
Go Tigers.
But but yeah, they went with him, and I'm just wondering, and I want to get your thoughts. His freshman year was excellent. I'm like, man, this guy's a machine. Yeah. There is no way he's not the number one pick. But the last couple of years, it kind of disappeared. Yeah, you had injuries, things like that. I'm wondering, and I'm going to ask you, do they get the Stingley of freshman year, or do they get the Stingley of the sophomore and junior year?
I definitely think they get the best version of Derek Stingley Jr. I think the last 2 seasons, there's been a lot going on at LSU. There's been a lot of reports about what was going on with Coach O and the things that he was doing out there. So it wasn't really the best situation for him, and that's why we didn't see the best out of him. That freshman year, he was playing with other former, future pros with Chase and Jefferson and those guys. And the last 2 years, LSU hasn't been good. So I think he lost some motivation there. So you're going to get the and having to reprove himself. So I think it was a really good pick. I didn't on my draft board, on my mock draft, I had him taking Evan as well. But I'm glad that they went against the grain with this one. I think it's going to be a really, really good pro.
We'll definitely see what happens. I mean, I'm interested to see how that shapes up, and we'll see what happens. Is all I got on that one. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They're definitely building this team from the back end up, because of course they did draft a safety as well pretty early, and still the question is who's going to rush the passer and get 10 sacks. We still don't know that answer. But last but certainly not least, we got to talk about those Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval. We got to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. A lightning rod for a lot of criticism because of his contract has been Mr. Christian Kirk. He who was the third wide receiver in Arizona, but is getting paid like he is the man in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be the guy. I mean, he's getting paid like he's the guy. Do you think he even lives up to the billing in terms of the contract-wise in New Orleans?
He's going to play well, right? But he will not live up to the contract. It's going to be an unfair situation for him, because he's going to be out there and he's going to do his thing. I can see him, getting 1,000 yards and playing pretty well. But then if Jacksonville, goes 5-12 and he's not a big impact as far as them winning, I can see people pointing right to the contract. You got this guy for all this money and he only helped you get, better by 1 or 2 games. But I do think that they'll be better just off the force of their coaching staff. You covered it very well on your podcast on how much a joke that coaching staff was last year. So the fact that they have adults in the room, I think that's going to account for 2 or 3 more wins by itself. So they'll be better, and I do think he'll have a good year, but it won't be enough for people to forget about how much he got overpaid.
I'll say this. Technically, if you look at the contract, he didn't get overpaid because it's kind of a lot of fluff money. But I'll say this, though. The addition of him at the amount in terms of average per year does make it look like he's supposed to be the man to come in there and walk on water when he comes in the room. But it is what it is. Another case you did say about some adults in the room, Doug Peterson. He's got a young quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Now, last year, Trevor Lawrence at some point seemed more mature than his head coach in terms of handling crisis situations.
Yeah.
This year, hopefully he doesn't have that with Doug Peterson. And he also has a coach who has kind of groomed quarterbacks. Now, do you think he takes another step forward in terms of, well, You think he takes a step forward? Because I really can't count last year as a step forward or backwards. It was just all over the place. But do you think he and Doug Peterson helps him take a step forward, or does Lawrence kind of still trying to figure himself out during this year?
I definitely think he takes a step forward. Like I said earlier, having a true coaching staff, an NFL coaching staff, adults in the room, it's going to help everybody, especially a young quarterback. And Trevor Lawrence, I believe, does have great talent. I think he has great upside. We saw flashes of it last year. He definitely has to protect the ball a lot better than he did last season. But outside of that, so much of the trouble was outside of his control that was going on with Jacksonville. So I can see this year him taking a huge step forward and showing why he was number 1 overall pick, why he was the top ranked guy since he was like 9th grade. We all knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be this guy coming out of high school. So I can see that pedigree coming through this year for him.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. As far as pedigree coming out, I mean, that Georgia defensive line was treacherous last year. They just brought people in waves. And one of those guys was Mr. Trayvon Walker, who ended up being the number 1 overall pick. Now, I had Mr. John Reed, who covers the Jacksonville Jaguars for the Florida Times Union on. And he was basically saying this guy is as big as a defensive end, but moves fast like a safety. That's a dangerous combination. Now, do you expect him to be in the running or win the Rookie of the Year for the Jacksonville Jaguars at basically rushing the passer and doing this thing?
Yeah, I definitely can see that. I can see maybe a Micah Parsons type impact with him. Now, of course, they're not going to have the wins that Dallas had. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but I do expect them to improve as a team. So maybe because he is so athletic, he can have that type of impact, and you can see him with double-digit sacks this year. So I definitely can see that for sure. And yeah, watching some of those games, it's crazy. See somebody that big moving that fast. It makes me jealous because, I'm somebody who was never that big, but also never that fast. It's just how is that possible for somebody to be able to do that? It's incredible. So I definitely want to see him and look forward to that with Jacksonville. I could see him having a really big year. So I wouldn't be shocked if he got Defensive Rookie of the Year at all.
I think one guy he's really going to help is Josh Allen. No, not Josh Allen, the quarterback from the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, the defensive end from the University of Kentucky that plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I interviewed him when he was actually before he got drafted, the NFL draft when it was in Nashville. So really good guy.
Okay.
Really good guy. I was gonna kind of go into a little bit more Jacksonville, but we kind of hammered that out and did well there. So up next, of course, to kind of end the show out, we have the game. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I've been looking forward to this, man. I see you've been putting a lot of people on the spot. A lot of people getting stuck. So I've been looking forward to this. I'm like, what is Mike gonna come up with for me, man? So I'm ready for this.
All right. The first one up, Aaron Brooks or Jeff Blake?
Oh, that's a good one. I gotta go Aaron Brooks. I gotta go Aaron Brooks because he did get us our first playoff win in Saints franchise history. A lot of people forget about that because after him, of course, Drew Brees came and it changed the whole outlook of the franchise. But Aaron Brooks got us our first playoff victory, and my first autograph from a professional athlete was Aaron Brooks. We went to Saints training camp when I was a kid, and they were kicking field goals. They had a golf cart behind the field goal post. So they're kicking field goals. The ball bounces off the golf cart. I catch it. I keep it. And after the training camp practice was over, Aaron Brooks comes and he's signing all, a bunch of stuff. My mom, she was a huge Aaron Brooks fan. She's screaming over the guardrail, Aaron! So he literally runs. He runs past a bunch of people to come to us, signs my football. He signed like her jersey. She still has it to this day. A number 2 Aaron Brooks jersey with his signature. She thought it was going to be worth money one day. It didn't work out that way, but she still has it. So I got to go Aaron Brooks because of that personal connection, and plus he got us our first playoff win.
All right. Nice personal story there. Now, this one is going to be interesting. The Dome Patrol or the Saints defense last season?
Oh, see, the Dome Patrol, I wasn't around for the Dome Patrol. It was a little bit before my time. But that
legendary status though.
Yeah, no, for sure. Legendary status. And you think about that linebacking core. Oh my God. It just greatness there. And it's a shame that the Saints have gone through these different just eras where you think about some of Drew Brees' years where we had these great offenses and our defenses were absolutely trash. In the Dome Patrol years, amazing defenses, offenses was horrible. Like we would make the playoffs, but didn't have no offense to really get over the hump. But the defense that we had the last couple of years, if it's last year, just particular last year, I'll go Dome Patrol. If you're going to go defense for the last 4 or 5 years, I'll go defense the last 4 or 5 years during this run where we had a lot of playoff heartbreak, but because of those defenses being good, we're always in contention.
Yeah, I definitely say so. And Mr. Lattimore out there has a lot to say about that too.
Yes.
All right, we're going to go with wide receivers, and you mentioned one of the wide receivers I'm going to mention. Michael Thomas or Marcus Colston.
Oh, okay. A lot of people sleep on Marcus Colston, man. Marcus Colston was solid his whole career. Like he never went like 2 up or 2 down. Like he was a very solid receiver, and was a big part of us getting our Super Bowl victory. So with him being attached to the Super Bowl team, it's kind of hard to not pick him. So yeah, this is a tough one. But I feel like with Michael Thomas, he has the ability, if he comes back this year being himself, he may be a Hall of Fame caliber receiver. So I'm gonna go Michael Thomas because of the upside. Marcus Colston was very good. And the fact that he was a 7th round pick and became our top receiver is a great story. And the fact that he's in the Saints Hall of Fame and all that stuff is great. But Michael Thomas has a chance to be an all-time great. So I'm gonna go Michael Thomas because of the upside.
Now I will say this, it wouldn't be a show when we talk about Michael Thomas without me talking about Philip Michael Thomas, Miami Vicing his way down the field. I got to say it one time. I always do say it every time I watch him play. But as far as Marcus Colston, him and Wayne Corbett, both of those guys from Hofstra. So there we go.
Yeah,
I believe Marcus Colston. Yeah, it's Hofstra.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
All right, next one. 2 teams. You either one you hate and one you've had some heartbreaks to. The Falcons or the 49ers?
Oh, like it's which one that I hate more, or like?
Yes.
I hate the Falcons more for sure. The 49ers, we definitely had some heartbreak there, but the Falcons, that rivalry is something special. I don't know if people from that root for other divisions or other parts of the country understand how much Saints and Falcons fans go at it, and how much as a Saints fan, it's a real pleasure that the Falcons are projected to be horrible this year. Like it's a special joy that comes to my soul. It warms my heart to say that the Falcons are going to suck this year. Like it's nice. The 49ers, if they have a bad year, it doesn't bring joy to my soul. But when the Falcons suck, when the Falcons lost that 28-3 lead, when I tell you, I don't know it was like a glow that came over my body. It was like, oh, this is nice. This is wonderful to see the Falcons suffer in this way. So I definitely hate the Falcons a lot more, but the 49ers definitely, my co-host on the 3rd and 3 podcast brings up the playoff game where Alex Smith had the best game of his life against us all the time. So there's definitely some heartbreak there with the 49ers, but the Falcons, I hate the Falcons with all my soul. So I definitely got to pick the Falcons.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there will be no crows in New Orleans. But let's see, as far as the next one, we're gonna talk about Mr. Taysom Hill at tight end. Yeah. Thumbs up or thumbs down on that decision?
Oh, thumbs up for sure. He's not a quarterback. Like that's the thing. He's a hell of an athlete. Great athlete. Runs a 4.4, can truck over people, can catch the ball. And I love him when we are using him as a running back, as a tight end, as a wide receiver. So for him to be able to concentrate at tight end, I think he's going to have a positive impact on the team there. Let Jameis be the QB. You have a serviceable backup in Andy Dalton. So let them handle that. Let us use Taysom Hill to the best of his ability with athletic ability. So I like him at tight end. He's not going to be asked to be the starter. We have another one in Juwan Johnson, who I think is going to take over that job as far as the starting tight end, because he has a former wide receiver, has great ability, has a good connection with Jameis. So I like Taysom as that second tight end. And if we have a rookie at left tackle, like it's look like it's going to be, I would love Taysom Hill to be the blocking tight end there to help him out on certain situations because he is a good blocker as well. So definitely a thumbs up, Taysom at tight end for sure.
All right. There we have it. Now, let's see. Speaking of the quarterback position, and now you just mentioned one guy I'm going to mention, but I'm going to throw another one out there.
Okay.
Andy Dalton or Ian Book. I honestly would love to see the youngster be the backup over Andy Dalton. That's just my thinking. But, what are you going with, man?
We only got to see Ian Book for one game last year, and it's not fair to judge him on that one game. We were missing, I want to say, 22 players due to COVID in that game against Miami. So it's not fair to judge him. Our whole offensive line was gone. He had no chance of playing well in that game at all. I did like the draft pick when he was coming out. Like, okay, I could see him as a backup QB, and maybe he can turn into a starter one day. So I would love to see Ian Book win that job over Dalton. That means that he's doing good things in training camp, that he's playing well. He's showing those flashes that you need. If he beats out Dalton, cool. If not, either way, I'm not really pressed about it because if we find out Ian Book isn't that guy, we can go to the draft next year, find somebody else, or hopefully Jameis shows that he could be that guy for the future. Jameis still is only 27, so he still can show that he's that guy as well. But yeah, like you said, I would love to see Ian Book win that backup job and show those flashes that we want to see. But I can't really judge him off last year with that one game with everything going against him.
Yeah, he had a rough one. He definitely had a rough one. But yeah, that's all I got with any questions and my game. You've aced the test, I should say. But what I can say is we have come to the end of our time, and I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for providing the excellent sports knowledge you always do. And I want to kind of give the floor to you to kind of talk about all the things you have going on. Of course, 33 Podcast. You got some writing going on the website. You got The Real Deal with Damian Adams. I mean, just go ahead. The floor is yours, man.
Well, thank you again for having me on, man. Like I said, I've been waiting for this opportunity to come on a celebrities podcast. So I feel like I made
it. Wow. What maybe like a D-list celebrity? I don't know.
But no, thank you again. No, I do appreciate it. So my podcast is called The Real Deal with Damian Adams. You can find it on all social media or podcast platforms, excuse me. So whatever podcast platform you like to listen to, just go ahead and search The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Put the full thing like a pimp named Slickback. The Real Deal with Damian Adams, and you will definitely find it. On that podcast, I'm talking NFL, NBA, and boxing, and we're going to have fun. Like Mike said earlier, I'm going to bring you the knowledge, but I'm also going to bring you the funny, and we're going to have a good time. I'm going to have guests from time to time on there, but a lot of times it's just me getting my thoughts off. I have my mind when it comes to sports works a lot differently, and you're going to hear all the thoughts that come from this weird brain on that podcast. And the other podcast I do is called the 3rd and 3 Podcast. I do that with 2 other very talented people, and Jason Fearman and Nikki Jess, that definitely know their football. The base of that podcast is the NFL, but the conversation can go anywhere. We can mess around, start going about reality TV with Nikki. We'll start talking about movies. Like, it goes everywhere, but the NFL is the base of that podcast. You have a 49ers fan in Jason, a Giants fan in Nikki, a Saints fan in myself. So 3 very different perspectives that combine to bring you a very good show that, again, it's going to bring you the funny, it's going to bring you the knowledge, and we're going to have fun as always on that show. So the 2 podcasts that I do is called The Real Deal with Damian Adams and the 3rd and 3 Podcast, available on all podcast platforms. I also am a writer, trying to get my Mike Patton on and write sometimes. So you can find some of my articles at the 3rd and3podcast.com. That's 3rd3podcast.com. You'll find some of my boxing stuff there, NBA, NFL. And I have started covering, or I guess, again, covering the Phoenix Mercury for the 3pointconversion.com. So for the rest of this season, I will be covering the Phoenix Mercury, and you'll find my WNBA articles at the 3pointconversion.com for them. And it's going to be a lot of stuff going forward, man, just hammering. It's going to be multiple shows a week, even with the summer coming up. It's something that you think it's going to slow down because the NFL isn't here yet. NBA is done. Now I've got to keep going. So keep looking for that content. If you follow me on social media at The Real Deal, WDA, that's The Real Deal, W as in whiskey, D as in Delta, A as in alpha. Pretty much every day I'm dropping like a little short video, reacting to something, or I'm giving you some type of content. I always like to say, keep that good content in your life, keeps your blood pressure down, keeps your cholesterol down. So if you follow me on social media and you subscribe to those podcasts, you will keep that good content in your life. Again, thank you for having me on your platform, Mike.
Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone that's listened and watched. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.